Oh, how lovely. A fellow on a modded 360 with South Dakota plates. Seems about right. What's the news story here?
Shockingly, this one isn't actually mine. It's still Filippo.
Incredibly, it's me once again. In the last year, 40% of new Ferrari buyers, so buyers new to the first time owning a new Ferrari, are under 40.
Yeah. I mean,
a year ago, that was 30%.
Yeah.
This is notable.
It's hugely notable, and it goes back to some of the stuff we've been talking about with Ferrari's changes in how they're making and selling cars.
Working.
You know,
Clearly.
I made this big deal about how Ferrari's screwing themselves over because they're making all these SF90s and selling to people who aren't going to be able to get the exotic cars. Ferrari didn't care. They're just trying to sell cars.
And they're getting new buyers who are young, which is rare. Think about it. The people that buy expensive cars aren't generally that young.
Right.
Yeah.
Ferrari once said, I build my cars for young men, yet only old men can afford them.
But the thing
now,
is,
young men,
Ferrari has changed their strategy entirely. It used to be you had to get on a 5-year waiting list to get one. They are completely going away from that. They want to sell cars to people. And this thing also says only 80% of sales are to existing customers, which means that basically a quarter of Ferraris are going to new buyers. A couple of years ago, new buyers really didn't have access to new Ferraris.
Right.
And that is clearly changing.
They always had access to California.
Well, to be clear,
But pre-California, they didn't.
Yeah. I think they're selling a lot of. It's clear based on their sales numbers from last year that said that they were selling a lot of hybrids. That's the 296.
Well,
and, selling,
and the SF90. Because I think new buyers can walk into a dealer and get an SF90 tomorrow at a discount.
I'm sure there are ones sitting around that they are desperate to get rid of.
It is interesting. I have said so many times, Ferrari's changing the strategy. This isn't good for them. In the end, I think they changed the strategy in a way that it will still be good for them. They are reaching new buyers. It isn't going to be the Ferrari that we knew before, where you had to get on a list and there was value in that. But instead, they have new people coming in who they're selling cars to.
There is a real concern that you guys have voiced before that will there still be as many children that were passionate about Ferrari? Here's a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, I don't know, driving a 360 or in a 360.
Sitting in a 360.
Sitting in a 360.
Manual one, though.
A manual one.
Yeah.
Will that happen? Will there be kids that want to sit in an SF90 to the same degree? Maybe and maybe not, but they'll see more around.
It's less about the kids and more about does the brand get devalued if they're just selling cars to anybody who walks in the door.
Well, also, to be clear, like I think a lot of kids who fell in love with Ferrari fell in love with, I think it's often been the poster cars.
Sure.
Which means that in this case, like maybe this kid's dream Ferrari is a Daytona SP3 because that was the hottest, craziest Ferrari at the time. For a lot of people, it was the F40 or the F50. Not many people had a Mondial on their wall, but they sold those to people eventually.
The F80, I'm sure, will be equally appealing.
Yeah, I'm not even going to touch that one. But like, I think it will have appeal. It will be different as long as they continue to be like effective in Formula One. I think for the diehard enthusiasts, that's like kind of what matters. But
I really think though the bigger question is less about whether the young people are into it and more about whether the brand cheapens itself by selling more and more and more cars. It used to be that getting a Ferrari was special. You were on a list for years and it was hard. Now anybody with any rich person can get a Ferrari. That definitely makes it less appealing.
With the exception of the really special stuff, is still going to be incredibly hard to get. So I think they have that going for them. Whereas McLaren, you kind of get any of them. If you wanted a Nova, thank God, take it off our
Artura,
hands. Any of them. So, I think.
And so the question there is, what happens to the brand? And I think it remains to be seen. But I think Ferrari's taking the risk that it's not like they're tripling their volume overnight. They're still going relatively small, and they're just going to try to continue to sell cars to people and make more money. It's a public company. It's what they got to do.
And they're reaching younger consumers. Which
younger people,
is
more people.
Good for them as long as they can retain them.
Speaking of Ferrari, give us our last news story.
Now, this one is mine. Now, although this is a diagram of an engine, this is a Ferrari engine because recently Ferrari filed a patent for a new type of engine. Now, what's interesting about it is that the pistons themselves aren't circular. They're ovals. Now,
that is interesting.
This is not the first time a manufacturer has done this. Honda did this as well. They also did it with motorcycle engines. And the reason that it's so interesting is that basically it makes the engine substantially more compact. The pistons can be mounted, and the cylinders can be much closer together.
Right.
So you can end up with a very high efficiency engine.
So why didn't anybody do this before?
Well, the piston rings are hard to manage, and there are a couple of other engineering reasons why it is very difficult. But what's really interesting to me about this diagram is that it's a 12-cylinder engine. Not a 6, not an 8. There are 12 pistons.
But if they're trying to make it smaller, do you think they're maybe making room for hybrid componentry?
I think it's room for hybrid componentry, and I suspect it's also room to be mid-engined. I suspect this engine is going to go in the back of something, maybe a new Testarossa. But what's really notable about this, to me, in addition to how crazy the design is, and they're like pushing the envelope of engineering, this will be the first new V12 they've developed since 2002. Which was the F-140 V12 which ran the Enzo. They then use that in all subsequent V12
various variations of it have
with the
been
exception of
used
the 575 and 612, which used the same engine, which was the
But
previous.
the previous one, that was already,
The F-140 has been in production for a really long time.
25 years.
25 years. And so if they're really pursuing a new 12-cylinder engine and it's going to have this cutting-edge technology, assuming they can make it work, it is Ferrari, who knows? They might file this patent and then they can't make the engine work and they'll get rid of it.
It's interesting, though, because the F80 is using a six-cylinder. So they're creating a 12-cylinder still, but they're not putting it in the flagship car.
Might be in the Icona series and not in the...
Yikes. Yeah. That's interesting.
Which that speaks volumes, I think, to us enthusiasts.
That's interesting.
So yes, they are making more cars for younger people.
And
or it's just in an 812 successor. But even then, you'd be surprised that they don't, if they're making a V12.
They're putting R&D into a 12-cylinder engine.
And not putting it in the big car.
Engine size and performance aren't directly linked.
But having a V12
in my world they are.
If you're going for pure, you want the fastest car, you don't probably put a V12
but having a V12 in the supercar is incredibly valuable.
Not where Ferrari is right now. They're going after performance. They're going less for heritage.
12-cylinder engines are a core competency engine for that manufacturer. In the same way that flat sixes are for Porsche, V8s are for Ford, Mustang. V12s are for Ferrari.
Plus, the Super Ferraris have always had V12s, with a few exceptions. Okay.
But nonetheless, really exciting news. Can't wait to see how this develops. So.
Yeah, they've certainly never had V6s. That is really interesting. And now we move on to our Talk Cars segment, which is sponsored by the Lexus LX. The Lexus LX.
I want to be clear. It's not. It's sponsored by Cars and Beds. Go to carsandbeds.
The Lexus LX, I want to be clear about this also, since you were being clear. The Lexus LX is offered in the following colors: Earth, Nori, Eminent, or Caviar. Which LX do you want?
I really thought that was a joke.
No, those are the colors.
I believed him when he said it.
Okay, I want to start by talking about how me and Filippo saw LaFerrari. Folks, I'm going to tell you a story. It's a great story. Look at this picture. This is a picture I took on Sunday. Filippo and I drove out to the desert because, God, we're free people. We can do whatever the hell we want.
Yep.
We drove out to the desert.
Saw Prius V.
And so we're driving along in Palm Springs and Palm Desert there. And I tell Filippo, there's this street in Palm Desert called El Paseo. It's where all the nice cars are. I say, a couple of years ago, I was here and I saw a new Ford GT, which is a car you don't really see on the road. I say, we got to go down El Paseo. He says, all right, fine, let's go down El Paseo. So I turn, I was in a new 911. God knows why. It sounds like a dream.
It does.
We were in a new 911 driving through the desert. Anyway, so we start driving, we're on the street for a block after I had just built it up as this street full of crazy cars, and we see this LaFerrari. So obviously I freak out as a seasoned former car spotter.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, it's a LaFerrari. And Filippo's sitting there like, yeah, probably cars are cars, I don't know.
No, I agreed. I saw another corner.
So I U-turn and I go back to it as fast as I possibly can, and then I have to do another sharp U-turn. I do this crazy sharp U-turn in the new 911, and then an alarm goes off in the 911. It goes, wee, 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 and then the hazard lights go on, like I'm trying to steal the car because I had just done this sharp turn. It
made no sense.
We think it was because it thought it had been in an accident or something. But the turn I did wasn't insane. It's what you would do on a track.
Exactly. Known as one of the best, most balanced sports cars of all time. You did a hard turn and it thought it
got an accident. So anyway, regardless of this, now the alarm is going off, and the hazard lights are on, and I'm chasing this LaFerrari down the road like I'm a cop trying to pull him over in my Porsche with a siren. Anyway, so eventually he parks, and actually the very next turn in he parks. So go to the next. Are all the pictures in here? Or is it just
the one?
Oh, we don't have all the pictures. They're beautiful photos. They actually weren't. But the fella got out of the car. He was an old guy, and he got out of the car. And I don't really talk to the people. I don't really.
No, but care. They did have a red 911 chasing them with an alarm going off.
But the guy pulled over, and he tried to go into an art gallery that was closed, and he left the car sitting there, and it was very exciting.
It was. And then somebody opened the fuel filler.
You never see a LaFerrari on the street. I haven't seen a LaFerrari on the street. Actually, you and me saw one in Malibu 3 years ago, probably.
I guess it was, yeah. An Aperta.
Yeah. This is incredible. And I was very excited by the whole thing. And I'm still kind of trying to figure out who was driving it. It was from Chicago, and I have a buddy up there, and I was like, do you know this guy? And he didn't. We got to do some digging.
It was quite a moment.
Well, for him. For you, it was just another day.
He didn't care. And you know what? I was disappointed by the general reaction. People are, it's a LaFerrari. Yeah, it's not an F50. Like, if you had seen an F50, people would be freaking out. It's still a Ferrari supercar. When was the last time you saw a Ferrari supercar?
A couple weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago, Amelia Island.
Driving down the street, you're next to a Prius. You see 5 million rolling down the street.
What was the dude doing? It was a Sunday in March.
He was out having some fun.
I'm glad he drives it.
Listen,
Everybody should
in
drive
Palm
their
Springs,
LaFerrari.
this is the time we should go car spotting in Palm Springs one day, because in the spring, all these people are about to have to go back to the hellish cold places they're from. Okay,
Right.
So they all have to go back to Alberta and Minnesota and Manitoba and Illinois, and so they're getting the last little bit of enjoyment out of Palm Springs. They're playing the last rounds of golf. They're getting
playing their last rounds of golf again.
They're playing their last rounds of golf again. They're trying to convince their wife to let them play yet another round of golf, and they're driving their LaFerraris.
Man, how special.
It was special.
It is, yes.
I'll admit.
It is. It's, again, not my favorite of the Ferrari supercars, but to see one just
In
like
fact,
driving.
your least favorite, I presume.
Oh, don't make us
Count
do
the
this.
F80?
Oh, no, not yet.
Not yet. It's not yet my least favorite. No, yeah, but no, it's just special. Someone actually using this car as a car.
It's so crazy to see now. I mean, they've become such investments. I never assumed that I'll see any of these cars at any point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's totally insane.
He was in
And the fact
car
that the
that
battery
was
works is astonishing. It's not at a dealer having that replaced for 260 grand. It's
Maybe
amazing.
that's why they had a prominent dealership frame on the back. They were just glad the dealer did that for them.
They know the dealer very well.
Montana plates like they all are.
Yup.
Okay, you know how Mercedes Gullwings or Porsche 959s will typically always be valuable and continue to go up in value? It's kind of similar to gold, which is why we've partnered with a company called Acre Gold. Financial experts and big banks agree the value of gold is climbing new heights in 2025 and beyond. So, how do you get in? Buying gold can feel complicated and expensive, but Acre Gold subscriptions make it easy and affordable. With subscriptions from $30 to $250 per month, Acre Gold makes gold ownership a reality for every budget. How does it work? Make automatic monthly payments into your stash until you reach the price of an Acre Gold bar. Once you pay for your bar, Acre Gold discreetly ships it to your door. And look at this, a real gold bar that Acre mailed to us. Markets go up and down, but gold has stood the test of time. It's real, it's solid, and now it's easier than ever to own. Secure your wealth and take control of your future. Start today at getacregold.com.